Yay.
Okay. It's my sincere thanks to all of you for making this happen, because there's a first time for everything in life. First time you learn to walk, first time you learn to talk, first time for everything. Everybody has gone through that, we can relate to it. And this too is the first time for me in my life. The interesting thing about this first time is that it's a new beginning. Once you learn to walk, you never crawled. Once you learn to talk, you don't have to cry anymore, right? Same thing here, this is a new beginning. And it's very exciting. On all those occasions, whether it's your graduation or your wedding or first child, there are always well wishers. Everybody wishing you good. Always happens with that occasion. That's a good point. So for me, that's an exciting, it's like, delivering a child. The whole gestation of it, and finally it all happens. So I'm very excited to be here amongst all of you. A year ago, I didn't even think of this, and it just happened. So it's a great experience. I'm going to just ramble on, don't worry, and you will understand why. Let me introduce the book to you. This is the time. I made a poster board for this. The book is here. It's titled...
Upside down.
Oh, sorry. That too is Universe. Don't worry. It's called The Universe Within, and it's got a subtitle, The Essence of Hinduism. Actually, the upside down was a good start, because down here at the bottom there's a reflection full of ripples. And as I talk, you will understand the meaning of it. And you can see on the picture there is an arm of our home galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy. And there's a silhouette of a temple at the bottom. And there's a statue of a yogi. And all these things are connected. They have a meaning. And as I talk, you will understand the meaning of it. And the ripples down there also reflect something. They say, let me just put this here, behind every successful man, there's a woman. It's a very crude meaning, because we are always used to saying man for everything. Man landed on the moon, man did this, just indicating humanity. It's not really a man. And likewise, it is not really a woman we are talking about here. It's not a physical woman. And I got to understand the meaning of this proverbial statement, because life brought me to it. It's very interesting. About 2 years ago, I entered the field of hypnosis and hypnotherapy. And that's where I got to know this woman. It's very interesting. We call her the subconscious mind. Behind every human being lies this woman, hidden completely like a root. She does everything for you. And we tend to think that she doesn't exist. She is everything. I call her a she because she's part of Mother Nature. And she's always listening to you all the time. And only through the exposure to hypnosis did I understand the meaning of all of it. And until then, I spent many years as an engineer. So to me, subconscious mind was just 2 words. And some psychologists would talk about it, and it didn't matter to me. And there was a reason. The subconscious mind is always listening, always watching you. And then she will suddenly make things happen, unbeknown to you. You don't understand why your path takes you in a certain direction. And later on, you can replay it and look backwards in time. Then you understand the meaning of it. So it's very interesting. What I realized is that the subconscious mind makes everything real. You can imagine something, she will make it real. And I didn't realize all along in my life I've been imagining things, dreaming things, and I've forgotten about those dreams, but she'll make them real. And only when I went through the hypnosis course and everything did I realize the power of the subconscious mind. It's very interesting. I was about 8 or 9 years old, back in India. I was very young. And I visited my grandfather's house. And they had a second floor whitewashed, nicely done. I went up there, I was a little kid. To me, it looked like a huge canvas. So I took a pencil and I just drew a rectangle there in the corner. And it's interesting. I just visualized a scene. I drew 2 hills on the left-hand side. I drew some trees. I always like to draw something that was not around. Then I drew a lake in the middle, an island. Then I was very proud of it. I ran downstairs and told everybody, hey, look, come and see my, I was looking for a pat on the back. They all came, everybody came. So I said, oh, this must be really good. Then I got a pat on the back. It was a little harder than I imagined. It's interesting, right? I forgot about it. I didn't think much about it. They whitewashed over it. And whenever I visited there, I'll go look it up, and I could see the traces of it. Didn't think much about it. And about 19 or 20 years later, I was here in Oregon. And I was a grad student. And I went with my friends to a place. I think it's Detroit Lake, near Salem. I went there, and they were all ready, getting ready for the picnic, and they were putting things on the table. I had a tripod stand and a camera, so I was a photographer at that time. I imagined myself to be some great photographer. I walked up a trail, and I stood in front of this place, which just hit me hard, because to the left I saw 2 hills, and to the right I saw some coniferous trees, and there was a lake, blue lake, and there was an island in the middle. And it startled me because I remember that. And didn't make any connections at that time. I didn't think much about it. I just walked back, didn't tell anybody about it. Then when I went through the hypnotic training, I realized those things have a meaning. Because as a kid, I imagined something, and mother subconscious is always listening. She brings it to you at the right time. She always does that. It may not be tomorrow, but she will do it at the appropriate time. She knows what the time is. The interesting thing about her is that she doesn't live in the world of duality. She doesn't know what is real, what is imagination. If you think something is imagination, she'll make it real. She doesn't know the difference between truth and a lie. She doesn't know positive or negative. You got to wish carefully for anything that you desire. And I wished for negative things because I didn't know what they were, and she made them happen too. So it just depends on what you think. She's so powerful. She's like a genie out of the bottle. Your wish is my command. She will do it for you, unbeknown to you. And that was an interesting experience. A few years ago, I just dreamt, I was a full-time engineer and cursing everybody coming out of a building. Then I would always dream something to, come out of it. I dreamt of, writing my book. I didn't know what the book was going to be, and publishing it and releasing it in front of like-minded people, people who appreciate the same thing. They come forward to, welcome that. I always imagined that and didn't think about it. And today I have to pinch myself because that dream became real today, right? That's how the subconscious mind does everything. And I began to understand how she works, because she works in this non-dualistic realm. Like, have you heard of the proverb, a lie told 1,000 times becomes true? That comes from that same realm, because she doesn't know the difference. And you can lie to yourself and it'll become true. And you can imagine anything that'll become real. And all she goes by is experience. She doesn't care about anything else. So she's always in the present, experiencing everything. She can go from past to future. She can do anything, right? So that's the power I really understood. And then I began to look back in life. And I said, why do these things happen in life? Because there has been an inner desire for all these things. There is a time for everything, right? You can see the world changing. The world is going between extremes. And it has come to a downhill slope. And it is at a cusp right now. It will go back up here. The world is changing in a positive direction. For the next few thousand years, everything's going to look wonderful. And we are at the cusp of it. We all came to give something. Just have to think, I want to give something to this. And she will make it happen. In my case, she made it like this, in the form of a book. And I would like this book to be a cog in the wheel of the transformation. It's interesting, right? She times everything perfectly. It's just amazing to watch her do this. You shouldn't interfere with her. Just let her do the job and she will do the job. It's amazing. I ordered a proof copy. The book was ready. I was all excited. Actually, I was supposed to be 2 weeks earlier. Right? I was all excited. I said, okay, let's get a copy review, right? And I paid for a 2-day shipping. Didn't show up. It showed up 4 days later. And I called them and said, what happened? They said, well, we cannot help you. We shipped it. And it came on a day. And I later on thought about it. It's very interesting. On that very day when the book arrived, there was a self-realized master from India. He comes from a very long lineage of saints. He showed up in Portland on that day. And actually I have his picture somewhere. I'll give you the website for him. It was very spiritual. My wife and I went there. and he taught us a new style of meditation. We learned all that, then we stood in the line. I had a book with me at that time. So I went to him and showed him the book and said, I need your blessings. And he looked at it, Universe Within. It's a very nice title. And then he breathed into it. When they breathe into it, it's a symbolic act. They have the inner power and they can put their vibrations into it. So now I know that every copy of the book has that vibration. It's all meant to happen. That's how things happen in this world. You don't have to do anything, you just dream. Dreams become real. Dreams have no limits. They are unbounded. They are very natural, right? So writing this book was a very interesting experience to me too. I will talk about that because I have written many reports when I was an engineer. Every time you define something, you have to put a title, abstract, summary, and everything, then chapter titles. Then you start filling up the blanks. Then you bring in data to fill that, right? And it is pain because you have a deadline to meet. And so sometimes the data won't come the way you want. Then you have to readjust everything. So I've done that many times. And this was the exact opposite of it. But here I realized this is somebody from inside writing the whole thing. I would just let her do it. I would watch the whole process. When I did that, it was amazing to watch her write it. Because she doesn't write the way we normally write. She will just write and it look as though nothing is connected. I'll be driving and there'll be a spurt of thought or an idea. And I'll sometimes start repeating that verbally because I need to take it down. If I let go of that, it's gone. It won't come back again, or it'll take a different form. So I'll be talking to myself, and people will be driving by looking at me, you know, there's something wrong with this guy, right? Or I'll go to a Starbucks or something and start typing it down on my iPad. I always kept them with me. When I type it down, it'll be about 6 to 7 pages. And it happened like an instant. And I just kept on collecting it, and something said inside, it's done. And I said, okay, let's go put it together. It came to about 200 odd pages. And I looked at it, I saw a continuity, it was very interesting. Then I didn't sweat over it. I said, okay, let's see what happens after this. The chapter titles came. If you look at the chapter titles, you will be amazed at that because the way she gave the titles, she calls it the mountain, the lion, the elephant. Every chapter is named after an animal. And it's you will understand why animals are important in our lives. They have something to teach, and in every chapter, she expands on it. I would never say I wrote the book. I only just watches the whole thing. I sweats over deadlines and everything. She doesn't like any of it. It's totally limitless, right? In nature, things just happen. If you watch that, there is no such thing as creation. Creation seems like an event in time. This is a realm where there's no time. When you go into deep sleep, 8 hours seems like 1 minute. You are entering that realm every time. Just that we take it for granted, right? So in this realm, there is no limit, there's nothing. Everything just happens. And if you walk into a beautiful landscape, we always do that, spectacular. It takes your breath away when you walk in there. Why does it take your breath away? Because there's beauty in it. And there is something inside of you that resonates with what is outside. And it doesn't want any disturbance. Even a breath can be a disturbance. It takes your breath away at that point. That instant seems like forever, right? And you wonder, how did all these things happen? Because there is no landscape artist. There is no planner or, they don't come and manicure everything. We do that in a small scale. We create gardens. But it can never match what nature can do. Everything in the universe just happens, if you see that. We always think somebody created it. Creation is a continuous process because it's timeless. Continuously things are changing. Every mutation is a creation. What happens, what we are confusing creation is manifestation. Manifestation is like this book. It just came. You just have to have the desire for it. It will manifest at its own time. You cannot push it, you cannot shove it, it will happen. When it happens, everything ties in, everything falls in place. That's how things happen. So you walk into a forest, you look at this, you see two things in it. Very interesting. You see this randomness. There are trees, all kinds of trees, all kinds of vegetation, right? Everything is there. Disorder, as you call it. It's called disorder because nobody planned it. Yet it looks beautiful, right? There's another aspect in nature. If you start looking closer and closer inside, you look at, touch every bark, you look at every tree, you will start seeing a structure. You will start seeing an order, because every tree belonging to the same species has the same genetic code. Order is hidden. Disorder shows itself. Yet the two of them together create this beauty. And it's not a random disorder, it is a disorderly order. There is an order to even disorder. It's like music. You have just 7 notes. There are countless number of songs composed all over the world, in every language, every culture. They are just made out of those 7 notes. Those 7 notes are the fundamental structure of all music. But then when you play it, it seems like a random manipulation of the keys, but it's disorderly, right? It is not. There's a disorderly order, we call it music. And if it is a disorderly disorder, we call it cacophony, right? So there is an order in nature. So you like music, you love music, it's because there is something inside of you that connects with it every time. That's why we appreciate music, we appreciate books, we appreciate arts. Writing this book gave me that experience of going in and just watching Mother Nature work. That's all I did. And she did everything. She did the subtitles, she did the title, she did everything. She designed the whole cover. I just had to execute it. That's all. The I part just did the syntax errors, grammatical errors, page numbers. That's all it did. The rest came from within. It was a very interesting experience, and I'm sure all of you have had a similar experience in your lives. No mother controls the baby growing. The baby just grows, right? You're just watching the whole process, and then it's a beautiful being on your hands. That's how everything in nature happens the same way. It's very interesting. Inner experience, as I call it. And this inner experience is like a river flowing. A river does not ask for directions. It just reaches the destination on its own. There's no GPS, there's no Google Maps, nothing. Every river, not only on this planet, but on every other planet, wherever you go, there's a liquid flowing. And liquid flows because of a potential difference. There's a higher elevation, there's a lower elevation, and every liquid has its fundamental principle. No matter where you go in the universe, you could have a river running out of molten iron. You could have a river running out of liquid methane or water, it doesn't matter. Every liquid tries to find its level under gravity. No matter where you go, that's the fundamental rule of liquid. Liquid doesn't know it, it just does it, right? That's why we call it a spirit level. We use a spirit level, we use a liquid in it. We call the liquid in it as a spirit, alcohol. That is just a crude meaning of it again. The proverbial meaning of that, the real deep meaning is that that level is called balance. Balance between two things. Inner balance. And when you do that, the inner balance is called a spirit. We are always saying, my spirit speaks, the universal spirit. All that spirit is simply a balance. Everything is drifting towards that balance. If you see that planets are going around stars in orbits, beautiful orbits, stars are existing in beautiful spherical shapes. Remember, every star, like a sun, it's a massive hydrogen bomb. If you think of it, every star, one atom of hydrogen, it has so much energy in it. If you unleash that energy, you can power thousands of cities with it. There's that much power. I wouldn't use the destructive word, I'll use the constructive word here. You can power many cities with it, right? And in every second, trillions of tons of hydrogen bombs are going off. And the nuclear force is the strongest force in the universe. It's extremely powerful. It can just blow things into bits. But yet, it is all held by gravity because of the immense size. And gravity is one of the weakest forces in the universe. The strongest force is balanced by the weakest force in nature. Opposites always come together. That is the characteristics of nature. You need opposites for one purpose, manifestation. In a forest, order and disorder created the whole forest. Things just happen. Same thing happens here, extremes. If you have all darkness, you will feel insecure because you cannot see anything in contrast. In a dualistic existence, manifested existence, you need a reference to orient yourself. If it is all light, if you go to the middle of our galaxy, there are so many stars near each other, it will be blinding light that you cannot see anything either. So you don't need light 100%, you don't need darkness 100%, you need somewhere in between. A contrast is needed. Contrast just happens again. So you're looking at this dualistic world in which there is a fundamental structure and there is a disorder. And the two play together, we call it the cosmic dance, in which everything just happens. I call that fundamental structure as the essence. Everything has an essence. If you think of it, you can look at anything in the world, there's an essence for it. Every atom has an essence in which two opposing charges are neutralized. Positive and negative are working together. Why? Because the energy is the lowest. There's no energy. Either you emit all the energy away, absorb all of it, and you reach neutrality. Extremes attract each other. They want to cancel each other out. As an engineer, that's one part I understood, because we deal with equations. An equation has two things on either side. If you change something here, something else changes there to balance everything. So it's all about balance. And engineers have built bridges and everything using balance. So balance is what we call as spirit. The whole universe is tending towards a balance, and then something happens because of randomness. Why does randomness come? Because randomness is a part of the environment. There's an environment in which, if you take a forest, you've got the climate, the weather, the rain, the sunshine. Nobody's controlling any of this. They're all constantly moving. And the structure responds to that in a unique way. So every tree might belong to the same species, sharing the same DNA, but each tree is different. Every one of us, there are 7.2 billion people on this planet, not one has the same fingerprint as the other. Everybody has a unique fingerprint, unique iris, unique denture. Nature doesn't keep a database, does it? Somehow it creates it. It doesn't create it. Things just happen that way because of two things interplay. And in Hindu mythology, or they call it as Shiva and Shakti, there are two dancers. He and his consort dancing continuously. It's called as a cosmic dance, in which she is the environment, he is the fundamental structure. And the two interplay, manifestation happens. That's the essence, as I call it. And essence of Hinduism, that's what the subtitle is. Let me talk about the Hinduism part of it. Looked at from a distance, Hinduism looks like a cloud. A cloud seems to have a definite shape, a color, dimension, and everything. But as you start approaching the cloud and you get into it, everything gets fuzzy. You cannot touch anything. You get lost in it. It's like getting lost in a forest. And that's what Hinduism is when you get into it. There are countless number of gods, countless number of goddesses, demigods. There are gods with animal heads. There are animals with human heads. There are all kinds of scriptures. There are 7 systems of philosophy and more. There are maybe, I would say, 1.2 billion philosophies, because everybody thinks they know what you're talking. So wherever you go, it's very confusing to an outsider. And it has survived through the ages because of a reason. We don't know what it is. That's because it comes from the essence of that system. And there is no such thing as Hinduism. It is called as Hinduism from outside. Actually, the word Hindu is a geographical name. Like calling somebody an American or an African. It refers to the land in which many things exist. But it's like a huge forest. Lot of randomness with a fundamental structure, the essence. We don't know what it is. It is not discernible. And that's what I attempted to do in this book. To go at the essence of the whole thing. I already alluded to that. What is the essence? Essence is finding that inner balance. And when you find the inner balance, you find the universe within. That's the essence, because that's what the universe operates on. Everything operates on the same inner balance fundamental principle. And that is the title of the book. That's how Mother Subconscious did it. She just worked backwards. She wrote the contents, then she gave the chapter titles, then she gave the subtitle, then the title, then the cover also came on its own. These are all different images, came together. And this is the universe. When you realize the universe within, you reach the state of balance. They call it Shiva. At that time, you don't have to go to a temple, you don't have to go to a church, you don't have to do anything. You become the temple. Until you do that, your mind is like a lake with ripples. It's continuously filled with ripples. When you find the inner balance within, that lake completely becomes devoid of ripples, and you can reflect the whole universe underneath. That's how she constructed the whole thing. It's very interesting how she does things. Let me say a few words about this inner balance. I keep talking about it. It sounds very easy, right? Just go find your inner balance, you are done. But that doesn't seem to be that easy, right? We are seeing this dualism in this world. Rivers are flowing. Why? Right? The sages in India figured that out. And they decided that spiritually speaking, we might be adults, but we are all children. We never left the preschool. In preschool, kids will come and say, my daddy is mightier than your daddy. No, he is not. And we see that in the world to this day, right? There are people who believe by the book. They say, oh, it's all said in the book. And they are there all over the world, right? Not in one culture or something. They are there all over the world. So it's very easy to tend towards blindness for some reason. And they said, children are the way they are. You don't want to sit them down and teach them mathematics. They will get bored with it. Children like to play. You have to teach them the way they relate to things. They want to play. So how, when you go to preschool, that's what you do. They got all these colored things hanging around, crayons. They take a recess, and they sing, they dance, and there are animals. Barney, they're all real there, right? Santa Claus is real. You try convincing a child that it is not real, right? So children are playful, and they learn much better than adults. Every child learns to speak subliminally. Every one of us learned to speak subliminally. We didn't just sit there at the age of 1 and somebody taught us. No. We watched others, mimicked them, and learned. And we learned not only the words, but also the expressions behind everything. Thoroughly. When you learn anything subliminally, it becomes complete. The learning is complete. When you walk, when you bike, whenever you learn something, you are struggling initially. But once you have done it, once you have ingrained it, it is complete. You no longer think about it. That's how we drive our cars every day, right? We don't even think about our destination. Subliminal learning is the real learning. And the seers of India figured out that that is the easiest way to teach people. Let them learn on their own. Just create the environment. Because a forest will happen if you give the correct environment, and the environment will be random. That's all right. That's part of nature. The order inside will begin to adjust itself, creating its own uniqueness. Because when order and disorder come together, there is uniqueness. There's manifestation and there's uniqueness. No fingerprint is like the other for the very reason. No planet is like the other. You might see billions of stars, there's only one Earth. There might be planets like the Earth, but it won't be the Earth, right? Everything is unique in nature with no database. Just amazing, right? So they figured out that, all right, this is what we are going to do. We are just going to let things happen. Let them evolve. And over centuries, over thousands of years, people have had fun because they are children. They have festivals, they have mythology in which gods did everything humans did. They fought wars, they romanced, they were babies, and they played with animals, they talked to animals, they did everything. So we are still kindergarten level children, we like that. Because inside each one is a subliminal message. And like a forest, if you look in the forest, the trees are all there. When the season comes, they spread thousands of seeds in all directions. Every seed doesn't become a tree. Only a couple of them fall in the right place, under the right combination of circumstances, by itself. Nobody's pushing it. And from there, another tree emerges. When you look at the forest, there are countless number of trees, and each tree happened the same way. Our own existence also happened. If our forefathers had married somebody else, the whole lineage would have shifted, and we won't be here. So we also happened by the same chance. We are all lottery winners when you think of it, right? So that's how things happen in nature. So they said everybody has an inclination. When I lived in India, when I was Young, it was a socialistic swamp where one family just controlled the whole country. So they had one television channel, which was only in the metros, black and white, and one radio channel. And so it was like being locked inside a prison because constantly you heard about them and nobody else. The prime minister, her son, that's all they were talking, and I hated it. So when I came to America in the 80s, it was like suddenly flying into freedom, right? I wrote letters. In those days we would write letters. I wrote letters home. Every week I would write letters. Mom, look at this. They got 40 channels. One for sports, one for shopping, one for, nature. I just wrote all the channels and it felt like liberation, right? Why? There's only one television. Why do different people watch different things? Because there's age, maturity, inclination, and various things. All that people are looking for is entertainment. But the word entertainment takes a different meaning in different people. You should allow them to watch the way they want to watch. And they will figure out what they need. Right? There are 40, nowadays we've got 200 channels. There's no time to even flip the remote. There's that many channels, right? So that's how it is. That's how nature works. And we like nature. We always want to drift. No matter how many shackles you put, nature will find a way. And that's always, it will crack through every concrete wall you build, and it will find its way. Right? That's very interesting. And so when I came here, it opened another avenue in me, because I had grown up in a very traditional way. I looked at the world in a certain way, and I thought that's how the world is. So I became an engineer, because everybody did that. Because that was like cutting a channel across a river, diverting it in a certain direction, because there is status involved, there is expectation involved, all these things involved. So you just go in that direction. You don't think much about it because you are living in that system. Much like arranged marriages. That happens a lot there in India because everybody accepts it because that's what everybody's doing. And so when I came here, it threw me into an environment which was 180 degrees apart. So now I was totally confused for some time. I was trying to understand. Everything happens in life for a reason. You are brought into an environment just to understand something. It gives you a very mixed view of the world. And that experience has always been there. I began to see the contrasts. Here is one country where they drive on the right-hand side of the road, and there is another country where they drive on the left-hand side of the road, and comfortable both of them, right? It's very interesting. So that's when this thought of extremes began to happen. And I started looking at extremes all the time. There is light, there is darkness, there is day, and there is night. And the seers of India said that we should use what we have. There's no point in talking some exotic philosophy that nobody understands. People are children. Let them use what they have. What do we have? We have the 5 senses. We see, we hear, we taste, we smell, we touch. Not only that, we have emotions. We have love, we have romance, we have hate, we have fear. We have all kinds of emotions, and they are all there for a reason. We have stress and anxiety. Don't think they are bad. They are there to protect us. We have pain. If we didn't have pain, we'll be hurting ourselves. So everything puts a limit on what we do. So they're all there to tell us to operate within a bound. Unfortunately, what happens is we are 2 in 1, 2 entities in 1. We have a physical body and we have a mind. The body can be easily healed. Body can be shaped. You can go to a workout or something, you can bring the body into shape. The mind is like the random environment. It's got infinite degrees of freedom. And unfortunately, because of all these varying conditions, it drifts away from the inner balance. We either find ourselves on this extreme or that extreme, and not in the middle. And we call that suffering. When you go away from your spiritual inner balance center, you call that suffering. Right? And we always have the natural gravitational tendency to come to the middle always. Only we don't know how to do it. So we go to the beach, we go to movies, we do all these things because we are constantly trying to find that center. That's why we are doing what we do. And what the sages realize is that you can go into that gap between the 2 extremes. Recognize that they are there. You can do it in 2 ways. One is you just put a fulcrum in the middle and they'll balance themselves. They can be there, but their effect is neutralized. If you look at crystals, every atom balances itself so beautifully that you create planes of symmetry, and from that beautiful crystals arise. They have bonding forces are still fighting each other, but crystals form. And they are an indication of a balance. That's why crystal is used for spiritual purposes, because they have that balance in them. You can relate to it, you can resonate with it. So they said, all right, enter the gap between the two extremes. We are entering the gap all the time. We are not aware of it. Our eyelids are opening and closing continuously. There is some jobless guy on Google. He has counted how many times people blink, etc. You can go read that up. It's very interesting. Our eyes are closing. Every time it closes, you enter the realm of darkness. Then you open it, you enter into light. So we are switching between light and darkness continuously. Our nostrils are breathing in and breathing out. We are doing that, not even thinking about it. We go into a state of sleep and we are awake. Right now, if I try to sleep, I cannot sleep. Bruce has to hypnotize me to sleep. Otherwise, I cannot sleep. Right? So, at night, 11 o'clock at night, your eyelids close and you're gone into sleep. And think of sleep. Sleep is a realm which is very interesting. We are not aware of it. Time loses its meaning. 8 hours seems like a minute. All your identities disappear. You don't know if you're a male or a female, what nationality you belong to. There could be two soldiers fighting each other from opposing camps. They are right behind a wall and they are tired and fatigued. They go to sleep and the wall collapses. They may be hugging each other and sleeping, not knowing they are enemies. You might be afraid of a snake, and an anaconda can just go over you and you won't even know it. But when you are awake, you will see a rope and sweat over it, right? That's the thing. Sleep is a beautiful thing. If a person lived for 100 years and you can ask her secret, what's the secret? She would say, well, I slept 8 hours a day. That's my secret. And if you add up all the time a person has slept, it works out to 33 and 1/3 years. So 1/3 of your lifetime you spend in sleeping. We need sleep because it is a state of rest. It gets us close to that inner balance. We feel refreshed every time. So we are alternating between two states all the time. So the sages said, let people use what they have. So how do you relate to everything? You create a deity, an archetype, which is God. There are all kinds of archetypes. Why? Because different people relate to the images in different ways. Use your bodily function. You are breathing. So they said, between inhalation and exhalation there is a gap. They have names for it in Sanskrit. Between exhalation and inhalation there's another gap. They said focus on the gap. And as you focus on the gap, that gap begins to widen. As it begins to widen, your breath becomes slow. Breath becomes so slow that you reach the state of stillness. It's not easy. So they have devised many methods. They said you are speaking. Why not use, what is speech? A word is a bunch of syllables. And they discovered that syllables can be manipulated. Right? We use syllables without realizing what we are using. Syllables have vibrations in them. Our tongue touches various parts of the mouth. Our lips touch. Sometimes they don't. And when they touch, there are nerves going into various parts of the brain which will trigger certain vibrations. So they have chosen words that will trigger the right kind of vibrations that will take you towards the inner balance. And they didn't explain that to anybody. They said, don't be an intellect, don't try to explain. Let people experience, because experience is the best teacher. So every god's name, you need to have millions of gods for that, because every god's name is a syllable. But Shiva is a bunch of syllables. And when you say Shiva, 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 you are not touching your lips. Om, when you do that, your tongue is not moving. So they have figured out all these things, and they said just keep on reciting. So everybody's name is a god's name. Where is the god? They said don't worry about that, just keep reciting the name. And you hear the god's name, you say the god's name, and as you do that, it brings you closer to that inner balance, unbeknown to you. Not only that, create the environment. You have temples, you light camphor, you put incense sticks. Smell is associated now with the same thing. Flowers, geometric patterns. Every flower has got a geometric pattern, which kind of balances your right and left side brains. They call it a sacred geometry. It's very interesting. Everything in the universe manifests itself based on the sacred geometry. There's a ratio called golden ratio, 1.618. A mathematician named Fibonacci in Italy, he discovered a series. Every number is a sum of the previous two numbers. And if you take the ratio of the numbers, you get 1.618. If you go into a forest, look at trees, every branch from the tree will be spaced by that ratio. Our own human body, there are things on YouTube, you can see that. The way the facial height, the space between the ear and the chin, everything is based on the ratio, our finger sizes. So you can measure a person just using the ratio. And that just happened in the universe. It's very interesting, right? So all these patterns are there, just create that and let it be there. Let the children play through it, let them worship a god with an elephant head. It's got an inner meaning. Somebody, some seed will fall at the right place. And that person will realize the meaning of it. And they will help others in the process. That's how it goes. That's how nature works. Today is a very good time because, as I see it, East and West are coming together. I find myself in the middle of it because I've seen both sides. And East and West are going to benefit from this. They are going to integrate as time goes on, picking the best things out of each system. And the world is going to see a much better future. And we are all enablers of that. We are all here. So I'm going to balance my right and left and bring it together because that is a spiritual state. And I want to thank all of you for being here, for enabling this, and listening to me at the same time. Thank you.
Let me take a picture of this. Okay.
I just want to roll down our camera.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.